Is everybody in? Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin.
This is very real.
Fantastic.
This drug is dangerous.
Wrong.
You cannot play with it. It's not funny. It's not something to laugh about. Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Shut your little punk ass up.
But the more you hate me, the more you will learn.
Welcome to episode 38 of the Autoflower podcast. I'm your host, Chad Dulaney, and I'd like to thank you for being here. I want to give a huge shout out to the new Patreon supporters, Brandon, Beakers, Sneakers, Carter, Jonathan, and Richard. Thank you guys so much for your support. Our community on Patreon is really growing strong, and if you'd like to join for as little as $3 per month, please visit the link in the show notes or visit autoflowerpodcast.com and connect there. And just a heads up, there are 34 spots left in the flowering club, 34 of 75. So we're about at half capacity. So if that's something that you are interested in and getting free tester seeds every 3 months, get her done, brother, get her done, because we're about at half capacity already. I am so very humbled by the support I have received in such a short period of time. Thank you all for your support on Patreon, for your comments on Instagram, for your encouraging and uplifting messages, for sharing how the podcast has helped you, and really just for simply listening. And I really mean that. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all of your support in every form that it manifests itself. I really appreciate it. On a side note, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Tourette Grower. I'm documenting grows, I'm reviewing products, and I'm being a dork. So if you'd like to follow along, be sure to visit the link in the show notes, or you can just go to YouTube and search for Tourette Grower. All right, so I've got to tell you, I'm really stoked for this episode. We had full Duplex here to answer your questions. A couple of weeks ago, I posted on Instagram and had you submit your questions to be answered. And the time has come to do just that. The conversation went an hour and a half, pretty long, so I had to break this into a two-part episode. I hope you don't mind. This is going to be part 1, and part 2 will drop next week on episode 39. So let's get to it. Please welcome back to the Autoflower podcast, Full Duplex, everyone.
We'll let the oh yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Don't hold it in so long, bro.
Oh no, I didn't. That's the key. Any more of the stuff will choke you.
So let's get the that first question out of the way that was emailed to us both. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
I need to pull that up probably.
I do.
Hold up. I gotta go find it. But what was he asking?
So the initial question that we were both, I think we were DM'd. I don't think it was emailed, but we were DM'd. Right. And it was just out of some innocent confusion. There was a recent podcast out there that somebody was talking about how autoflowers are made from the feminization process by spraying colloidal silver on a plant. And that's what produced autoflower seeds that, it made them independent of the light cycle and makes them grow faster. And after talking and doing some, chatting back and forth with the individual, he definitely realized that that was a little bit skewed, which I think a lot of us already know. And we all know that autos came from ruderalis and not a feminization process. You can feminize autos, but feminizing a photoperiod does not mean you're going to get autoflower seeds. The gentleman has since, kind of touched more about that whole situation and that conversation. And, we just want to make sure that as a community, we're talking about the correct process and, where autoflowers came from and how ruderalis is actually incorporated in making the autoflower plant.
Yeah, because I don't think he meant anything harmful by it, but so you and I both got the same DM from the same person.
Correct.
Who was a little bit confused, like what is this, and it is so off, but I'm glad that you presented it and like handled it maturely and respectfully, because a lot of people would probably just bash that dude, and he probably just didn't really. He was probably just, reading off of an article or something that he had found online. And so good for him for kind of being receptive and not just getting mad and attacking you or something,
Well, exactly. And that's the way that I think this community should be in the first place, is the ability to exchange different points of view without an argument. I think that's lost in a lot of many things that we deal with in personal relationships and even new relationships or, new acquaintances, is, the ability to hold a conversation from different points of view and not get mad at each other.
Totally.
And, I got a lot of respect for him, because I was like, like you said, I approached it and I was like, hey, listen, I don't want to be the person to just blast this out there, but I want to have a conversation with you. Like, could you clarify what you were saying? And this is the information that I have, and presented it to him. So it was nice to have an adult conversation without people getting butthurt.
Right. You was just educating him in a decent way.
Right. And I think his intentions were absolutely pure. And I just think it was a misunderstanding, and even maybe just misspoken.
Totally. Yeah. But so for the record, because we wanted to put that on like as the first question of this episode, so just for the record, feminizing a mother photo period plan or whatever has nothing to do with autoflower ruderalis genes.
Correct.
Has nothing to do with it. It's just, it doesn't even, the question itself literally doesn't make any sense when it's composed with those words, because it doesn't work that way.
Correct. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Again, we'll touch like, yeah, you can make feminized auto seeds, but that needs to come from typically a reversed auto female.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Ching check. Got that out of the way. Let's move on to the Patreon supporter questions, if you don't mind.
Not at all, dude. Let's do them.
The first one we have here is from Chris, and he wants to know how and when to take a cutting or clone of an auto.
So this is something I've not done personally, but speaking from individuals who've reached back out to me with my personal cultivars who've taken them, you really want to look for those lower branches. So it's really hard to pinpoint, let's say, a time frame, because everybody's grow environment's different. So plants are going to progress at a different rate. But the one thing that I could say that you should focus on is the lower side branching growth. That tends to be the best place to snatch them up relatively early. So if you're growing with regular seeds and you find a female that you do want, you want to make an attempt in cloning, I would at least wait until you see sex to confirm that you're A, cloning a female, and B, you've got some structure on that plant that you can truly take a cutting from that lower branch area. And that lower branch area I'm referencing is usually about the first or second node, because once autos sex, they tend to start pushing those branches out next. They do progress their ones up, second node through however many they decide to have. But usually the first and second internodal areas tend to show quicker growth than the uppermost nodes.
So when around do you think, like, obviously if you're gonna, I don't know much about this, and I've never tried it. I know I've interviewed CBD Irie, who has successfully cloned an autoflower through a few generations and got pretty okay, decent yields off it, to be honest with you. But so, like, for those listening, you can also go back and listen to that episode. But what do you think about, as far as when he says when, do you want to do it like before it goes into flower?
I would suggest so, yeah. I would say right around sex, because usually you're going to have some bigger growth down there. I'd recommend taking it when it's at least 1.5 to 2 inches in length if you're going to attempt it. Now, remember, that's going to be very new and delicate growth. So, make sure your cuts are clean, make sure you're in a sterile environment. But I would do it very shortly after sex. I wouldn't wait until bud set happens to where they've stopped their stretch and they're starting to swell. I think that's too late.
Okay.
Personally, I've never done it
Gotcha.
myself.
Right. So you're just kind of relaying information and stuff.
Yeah, relaying information and just going off of what I've experienced as far as like how late you can pollinate them and just the maturity in general. I think the longer you wait, I think you could potentially run into some stunted or, very small clones. I think if you want the full potential, you want to get it before that big hormone change.
Okay. Sweet. Thanks for answering that, man. Let's move on to our next question from Dylan. This one's kind of lengthy, so hang with me for a second here. How do you isolate a particular trait on a cultivar and keep it through the following generations while isolating other traits? For example, crossing Jim with Anvil and bringing the high CBG and quick finish while also having that knockout power and color of Anvil?
I think that's going to be a two-part answer. One, it's generational numbers. Unlike photos, kind of contradictory to the first question, we really can't keep clones unless you want to continue to clone and then clone and then clone and then clone. And I fear that you may run into degradation. So when it comes to selecting specific traits, you have to key in on what you like about the mother that you're keeping in the current generation. And you like the father, obviously, because those two you're going to allow to pollinate each other and create the next generation. In that next generation, I think it's imperative to open up as many seeds as you possibly can. And what that's going to do is that's really going to give you an idea of the phenotypical expression that you're looking for. So in the earlier generations, I think it's a lot more work than it is when you get into the later generations, like say F5, F6, F7, where you've isolated those generational traits for 7 gens. So in the later numbers, you're going to see, more of the plant that you're looking for than you would say at the F2 and F3 cross. And the second part of that is crossing the CBG gem into Anvil is going to take some lab testing. I have not seen any kind of physical presentation of CBG in its high form other than what I have grown the gem in, and that's been with my nose. So it's not really been physical evidence. It's been more of a terpene evidence. Now, I don't know and can't claim the two are correlated. But what I can say is, searching that out would be based upon what you're smelling from the gem that you like, and then you see the Anvil and the color, it's going to be there. The color from Anvil is going to come through extremely dominant. I think 99.9% of them have been pure purple. I've seen some that are speckled with green, but due to the dominance of that, it's not going to be hard to find that trait. But to find the balance of the two, I think it's going to take lab testing as you progress to get both the knockout power, the color, as well as the high CBG.
Gotcha. Good answer, buddy.
Thanks, dude.
All right, the big green guy. He asked, how do you know when to pollinate a female? What signs to look for to maximize effectiveness?
So that's actually one question I get asked a lot, especially when I am working with people that are wanting to learn how to breed, and even farms that want to preserve the lines. And I think the best answer there to maximize your yield and seed is wait for the stretch to stop. After the stretch stops, she's in bud set, she's putting on her flowers, and then they start to swell. There's a happy medium right there to where you're going to have a lot of your calyx or bract presentation to where you can pollinate and result in a high yield of seed. So I like a better term, I like to call it the pom-pom stage. They look like pom-poms. And they're not quite swelling yet. They're just where they've stopped stretching. The flowers are really starting to come on, and I think that's the time that you want to hit it to maximize your seed production.
Okay.
And then after that, you want to wait at a minimum 3 weeks. But one of the things that I like to do to mature as many of the seeds as I can is go usually 4.5 to 5, if I can, depending on the life cycle of the plant.
Awesome, man. Yeah, kind of like the longer the better, huh? A little mature.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's been times where I have found a plant that didn't present some traits that I wanted early in the flower that showed up real late. And the beautiful thing about that is your lowers are typically a little bit more immature than what your tops are that are exposed to light, especially if you're growing indoors and even outdoors, depending on the way the sun passes or how you got it set up. And sometimes you can catch those later on, but you have to wait those 4 weeks. So what you can do is partial harvest that plant. So that's something else too, a little tip and trick that you can take the tops. You may not have seeded them, which is good because then you can test the smoke, and then you still have the potential to carry on that genetic code that you really liked by pollinating the lower flowers.
Gotcha. Good stuff, man. This is going to be a deep episode, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I want to answer them as good as we can. For there's been, we started off this with some confusion. Hopefully, we can clear up a few things.
Yeah. All right, man. Trevor G says, in your personal experience, how important is the specific smell of a cultivar to how you use it medically, recreationally, and what effect it has? In other words, do you look for certain dominant flavors, scents for different effects? And if so, which ones work well for you?
So with this question, it kind of leads back to the one we had about the gem with the CBG. And I said that, I hunted that one by nose. When I was being educated in the way to breed autos, I was always told to go by my nose. And the gem was selected over multiple generations way before I ever had it tested based upon the way it smelled to me and the resulting effect after the plant was harvested. And that really appealed to my endocannabinoid system. And the smoke, the terpene smell on the live plant, the terpene smell on the dried plant, sometimes they're lost in translation, but the gem was one that held through to me. So I think in a way you can really select based upon, nose and scent, especially if it appeals to the body. So to answer that question, I think, why not? You're selecting based upon that. Is it going to come out as good and as lucky as the CBG did? Maybe, or maybe not, because everybody's system is differently and you're going to respond to it differently. So the best advice I could give is just, respond to what makes your mouth water.
I like that.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like your sense, it's like when you smell a good candle or you smell a flower or you smell, any good food cooking, like there's certain times it smells good. And then there's other times it just triggers more than just that sense of it's good. Your body responds to it.
Right. Yeah. You know what's weird, man? Like for me, I almost know for certain, like if there's like a sativa, or it could be a hybrid, but if it's more sativa dominant and if it's got fruity terps, but especially like limonene or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but usually when I get a strain that is set up that way, it just works good for me for some reason. It must be just my biology or my neurology. I don't know, but it's kind of
a little
weird.
Mix of both. Well, not really weird. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I guess it's not really weird, but yeah.
It's one of those mysteries of why plants can be healing without some kind of pharmaceutical, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's just a different appeal.
Yeah, it's true. All right, man. Chris. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, just a quick touch. We were talking about, I think it's mycerine is how it's pronounced, and I might sound like an idiot, and if I do, I'm sorry.
Myrcene?
Myrcene. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. You've
corrected me a few times. I don't know how it's pronounced.
Me either, which is kind of shameful, but at the same time, we were talking about, like, to me, it's sedative. To some people, it's uplifting. And with that said, I'm diagnosed ADHD clinically, and anything that's high in that will help sedate me for the evening, which is super nice.
Interesting. You should chow down on a mango before you smoke that.
I don't know if I want to overdo it. I want to finish the bowl, man.
All right, man. Want to move on to the next one?
Let's do it.
All right, Christopher Ryan. I want to say Christopher Robin.
Yeah, you did.
Winnie the Pooh. Christopher Ryan. He says, noob disclaimer. So he wants us all to know he's a noob. Hey, man, shout out to you for being transparent. I'm a noob,
right?
Too. I have heard before on the pod that pollination with a male regular seed and a female feminized seed will cause future seeds to be unstable, possible line of herms. So what is the best way to reverse a FIM to match with another FIM? I heard colloidal silver spray, but that certain breeders might use a different process to get FIM seeds. What is other processes?
So there's another two-part question, and a big question at that.
Yeah.
So the first part, to basically answer it from my experience, I'm not going to say that this has happened to everybody, but I've actually had conversations with other auto breeders who have seen it. And there's something going on when you use a regular male to pollinate a feminized plant. And that from my experience, I have seen in that F1 offspring more hermaphroditic males than I have ever of a hermaphroditic female. So typically, and I think it may have to do with something with the reintroduction of the Y. And I don't know what it is at a scientific level, and maybe somebody out there who listens to this could help me understand it better. But I do see sexual instability in that first generation. It's what makes working with a feminized auto line to a regular auto line so difficult if you want to do it, and why I tend to go more towards pulling in a new photo period or something along that line than putting in an additional 2 or 3 generations. Okay, yes, so I got the auto trait, but I've got 2 more generations of work before I can, stabilize the sex on them. So if you're going to spend that kind of time working with an auto to auto cross, why not bring in a photo period and do the same thing? So yeah, I think that, is something that I've seen experience. I've talked to, like I said, other well-known breeders that have ran into that situation as well. And to answer the second part, colloidal silver is one of the most common phrases that we hear, but there's also silver thiosulfate. Myself personally, I don't feminize, but I've seen both work. It's all about, with your STS or silver thiosulfate, it's about your ppm levels. And then with your colloidal silver, it's about your concentration levels. Both of them have a little bit of a different process. Silver thiosulfate has got more of a stock, B stock, which are 2 different types of, liquid that you mix into either distilled or filtered water. And then the colloidal silver is more of making silver. And then I'm not really quite sure about the rest of the process. I've done more research on the SDS than anything.
All right. Well, I have a little bit of a question. Well, first I want to say for those listening that my pollen chuck haze, that is a regular male autoflower pollinated to a feminized haze XL autoflower. So I just want to be fucking transparent about it. You know what I mean? So if anybody runs into any hermaphrodite issues, go ahead and raise the red flag and let me know. And I won't be doing that again, knowing that moving forward, of course. But anyways, so I just wanted to say that and get that out of the way. And then I'm thinking that could get ugly, dude. If you're constantly what happens if someone reverses a feminized female and then pollinates a feminized female, and then somebody takes those seeds and does the same thing again, and you keep what can that mess stuff up?
Well, a lot of the feminization process does that. Where they'll take a feminized line, they want to make the next generational selection, and they will take a female, or they will take 2 females. One they will not reverse, and the other one they'll reverse, and they'll pollinate it, creating an inbred line that's been all pretty much out of reversed females. And you see, that's how a lot of these companies make generational amounts of feminized seeds.
Oh, I see.
So that's common practice in the feminization market, from what I understand.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. He's got a second part, which I guess we would probably consider a third part, but that's okay, Christopher. So, living in Chicago and only being able to grow 5 over 5 inches, how would a
small plant?
Well, I think what he means is if it's over 5 inches, then you can only have 5 plants.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
I think that's what he's saying.
I hope.
But I know how would I wouldn't even grow at that point. You're only allowed five plants, and they can only be 5 inches. You'd be stunting on purpose, dude, trying to get that thing to stay small.
Either that or LST and super cropping. Something.
Yeah, really. How would a regular seed like Anvil react to using the spray to get feminized seeds, since I can only grow a precious few at a time?
I think it should react fine, especially if you spray a female. They've been stabilized over several generations, especially for sex stability and color. Um, I've had one or two individuals, I think, that have reached out and done a reversal on them, and they seem to have handled it well. It wasn't too stubborn, and it, produced plenty of pollen for them to feminize that, either that generation or collect the pollen and do it on the next.
Mm. What would happen if you spray colloidal silver on a male?
I'm not sure, bud. I really can't. I can't talk on that because I've never done it, and I think there's something with this, the silver in general. It bonds with copper, I think, and forces that female plant to produce the male stamen. Now, if you were to hit a male, I don't know. Maybe somebody can answer that for us.
Yeah, it just popped into my head really quick. Sorry.
And I've thought about. No, you're fine. No, I've thought about it too, but I don't know because I've never done it, never tried, never talked to anybody that's done it, so I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Christopher, for that question, brother. Those are good ones. Adam wants to know, what are some of the different traits that are interesting to you in the ABC line you're working?
There's a lot.
Starting with the leaves.
Well, starting with the leaves, yeah. I mean, the mutation is one of my things. I've got lack of a better term, I've got a fetish for leaf mutations. There's something about it that appeals to my eye. I mean, I also like symmetry and balance, but something about a leaf mutation, may it be atypical leaf patterns, may it be variegation, may it be different serrations, there's just something about it for me. So the leaf is definitely one. Two, the growth pattern. I'm still learning them. This is the first time that I've grown them. I've outcrossed it to an auto, and I've also continued what I have and did an inbred line of them to preserve the genetics. And they grow quite uniquely. They're more of a bush. I could have done more training. I could have done more, cleanup or skirting, or, there's no really need to de-leaf because there's not big leaves at all. But I wanted to see the natural mechanics. One of the things that we've talked about a lot of times about, new growers or somebody that's trying to grow autos for the first time is learn the mechanics of the plant. And to be able to work with something new like this that's unique, I wanted to learn the mechanics. I wanted to see what it would do. And I've seen some interesting, distinct differences between this cannabis cultivar and then what we typically see as cannabis, and just the way it grows. It literally grows more like ground cover and bush than it does a typical cannabis plant. It doesn't grow straight up with side branching. It just branches everywhere. It's more of a shrub. So I think that's one of the other unique things. And then it's mold, mildew, and drought tolerant too. I've tested the drought tolerance, and it's pretty impressive. The pots were way too light, and they just still had on. They continue to mature. The trichromes are moving on just like any other cannabis plant would. So I think that's some things that I'm really looking forward to, is having something that's mold and mildew resistant for the climate that I live in.
That's cool, man. I think of that as a total covert option too. If you were to stick that even in your, front yard, backyard, whatever, and you want to go a little stealth, you can almost hang some fake tomatoes from that. I've seen Shango post. Did you see that?
Yeah.
And you did something too, didn't you? You posted something about that?
I did.
Yeah, but that would be a good plant to do that with, man. Have some little tomato decoys on that ABC plant with those weird looking leaves. It doesn't even look like cannabis.
Well, and that's the thing too. Even in its natural form, unseeded, without any kind of decoy on it, you wouldn't know what it is because its buds. Its buds aren't huge, but what it makes up in huge buds, there's thousands of them.
Nice.
That's awesome, so I mean, dude. I think your aggregate weight is going to be close to, I'm not going to say the same, but close to what you would pull off of, 12, 13-inch colas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just that low key. Even seeded, one of the top crown buds is no bigger than, a quarter of the size of the palm of my hand. So even seeing that out there, you still wouldn't know what it was.
Oh, I see. That's cool, man. I can't wait to see the end result of that, dude.
Well, I can't either. I've been watching CSI, Humboldt, or those guys have had ABC out for about a year or a couple years now, at least to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's interesting to watch and see the outcrosses that they've done. They produced a bunch of seed, and then out of like several hundred seed, there were a very short few that showed mutation on the next generation. So that's what I'm really looking forward to, is the seeds I'm going to pull off the one that I've got outcrossed to an auto, just to see, what comes out.
Yeah, that's sweet, dude. All right, let's get on here to Zach. Zach, it looks like he's got more of a comment than a question. Please pass along. His packaging is really special. Felt warm and intimate. Ooh. Yet
hey.
Sleek and durable. Aesthetically pleasing, too. Genetics are on point, so it's not packaging without validation. I plan on ordering a couple more just to vault away unopened. Anyway, thanks.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. One of the things I did was put a lot of thought into my packaging process, and I wanted something different. There's a lot of great packaging out there, and I wanted to set something a little bit aside. I'd seen some, different cases and different boxes, and I see a bunch of Mylar packaging, and I just, want to put as much care into the packaging as I did into making the seed, basically.
Kind of be a little different,
Right. It's you got to stand out, amongst a field of roses.
That's right. And some thorny ass bushes, but
Man, we won't talk about them.
All right. The Wealthy Trees. He's got 3 questions. All right. Who do you think you are, Wealthy Trees? You just come on here and ask 3 questions, dude? What is this shit? No, I'm just joking. Totally kidding. How much and how often do you how often do you defoliate?
It depends on what I'm working with. If we're talking autos, which we're on the Autoflower podcast, we should probably do that. I don't defoliate a lot. Mm-hmm. I usually leaf tuck, if anything. Once they get into the point where they're into maturity, and I see some big fans blocking some light from, some lowers that are looking real rich, then I'll go ahead and pull those off. And when I do, I like to take it all the way down to the stem, trying to eliminate leaving any kind of decaying growth inside there that could potentially get swelled up around and then cause bud rot. So if you are going to defoliate and you feel the need to do so, that's my recommendation on the process that you should do. And I also think there's a limit. There's a stress curve to the plant. And if you do defoliate and you feel like you need to do some more, give yourself some time. Don't take off a quarter of the plant one night and then an additional half to where your 3/4 of the plant's been stripped out the next night. Like, don't do that. Give that plant time to adjust to the stressors that you've given to it. And a lot of people think that just light stress or just heat stress or just, overwatering stress, there's defoliation stress too. Anything that you do to that plant that's outside its normal growth pattern, I believe is a stress to that plant. And when I do my photos outside, I do some skirting and I'll do some defoliation at certain points during the grow, but I do it in stages. For instance, it'll take me a week to defoliate everything that I want to do inside that greenhouse. And there's 6, so I usually put a day in between. So maybe it's a little bit more than a week. There's 6 plants, and I will put at least a day in between, even though I'm not defoliating the same plant. Just kind of take my time to work through there. Sometimes I can get to the whole plant. Sometimes I got to take a quarter of the plant. I got a kid, and you stay busy. So you do what you can when you can. So if you're going to do it, I'd recommend tucking. But if you absolutely feel the need to cut them off, wait until she's in good ripening position to do so and take it closest to the stem as you possibly can.
All right. And do you use Bovita packs while curing?
I have. I'm doing a test currently, some with, some without, during the curing process to see if it's really altering the smell and the taste of the cannabis. Recently, I've done some Bobby's Widow that I had for smokable flower, which is all gone now. But I noticed a heavy change in the odor when I opened up the jar. Having the Bovita pack in there, which is post cure, but it's more in storage. And I'm curious to see if it's actually what I've been rumored to hear, is that sometimes it could potentially suck out too much of the plant, taking terps with it. So I have, and I'm testing have not, just to see if there is really a difference.
Okay. All right. And his last question is, do you wet trim at all before you hang?
No. So typically what I will do is I will buck the larger leaves, the larger fan leaves off, and then usually that's about it. It really helps in the drying process because it slows down that dry, and that's ideally what you want. I used to wet trim a long time ago before I started experimenting more with a dry trim. And what I have found is I find that my terps are better because the whole dry process is slowed down. That extra moisture, that extra content really slows down the whole drying process, preserving some of those volatile cannabinoids and terpenes.
Okay. Gotcha. Actually, I was reading the next question while you were talking toward the end there, so sorry. I hope.
Well, I can tell you weren't paying attention to me. I see how you are.
I'm so sorry. Hey, this is
You're
for
good.
everybody else. No, I'm just joking.
No,
All right,
good.
so that's all the Patreon questions, and I wanted to kind of give them a little bit of a priority,
Give them
I guess.
some love, man. Well, no, I agree, 100%.
And so we can move on to the Instagram questions if you want. I know you had reposted my post. Did you want to go through some of your questions that you wanted to answer, or do you want me to start firing away from my post?
Go ahead and fire away from your post. I know we've talked a little bit before the podcast, and some of them are similar. Hopefully we hit them. If we don't, they can always reach out. That's one of the things that I like to talk about. Is I will answer you. It may not be instantly, but I will get back to you. And if you end up in my requests, give me a day or two. I'll get to you. It just takes time to go through both my main DMs and then ones that are just sitting in my request box.
All right. So here's one from Latitude 62. He's got quite a few questions on here. He or she, sorry, I don't mean to stereotype there. But when running pheno hunts, how big of pots are you using to get an accurate representation of the plant? Do you train the plants you're stress testing, or do you find that the larger canopy makes it harder to watch for problems? I guess that's two questions in one. Sorry.
No, you're good. No, I mean, typically I'll run in anything from solo cups up to about 1 gallon when I'm doing a pheno hunt. You don't get a correct representation of the height out of the gate, but when I'm doing big pheno hunts, it is for F1 crosses and even F2 crosses for photo to auto. So once I get the traits I'm looking for out of the first round done, I might move up to a 2 gallon, but usually in pheno hunts I go no more than 2, just to keep for space, for to get an idea what she's doing, and just kind of figuring out what she wants to be. And you may have to repeat a couple more of those questions. I forgot the rest of that stuff. You have to forgive me.
That's all right, man. Do you train the plants you're stress testing, or do you find that the larger canopy makes it harder to watch for problems?
Typically I don't. When I pheno hunt, I don't like a large canopy as far as like the plant goes. As many canopy, Wow. It depends on what he means for large canopy.
Yeah, well, I think he might be assuming that the way you stress test is by training, but I don't know if that's true. I mean, I know you rip your freaking males right out of the soil and then stick them back in there, but I mean, that's a pretty dramatic freaking stress test. But other than that, like, I don't know if you're, like, let's stress test by topping and mainlining, and let's do one. I don't think although other people do, but I don't think you train your plants to stress test them, do you?
That's not in my regimen. I think personally that some traits can sneak by in just an LST. And LST is, a low stress training method. Now, I think a high stress training method, topping and mainlining, could potentially bring it out more. But, your drought, your overwater, you're ripping them out of the soil, tends to bring out those piss poor traits quicker. They stress and then they freak out. So Down the line, yeah, I may do some LST, but like typically I'm a naturalist. I very rarely top any of my plants unless they're photo period. My autos I usually just typically leave alone. I might bend over the main stem just to make some room because I've got 5 or 10 in a 10-gallon pot. Just to, allow them to have some good growth space to start off. But other than that, that's about all the training I do when it comes to stress testing. The rest of it's more of like physical impact, just to see if they'll hold up.
Gotcha. All right, let's see. Rablins. This is more of a personal question. Telecom or networking background based on the name?
Networking. Networking.
Let's see.
IT in general, actually. So yeah.
Okay. Farm MC 137. When taking a photo to an auto, why do you not look for the auto trait in the F1 generation? Would it be better to wait till F2 or F3 to find an auto male and auto female?
Yes. I tend to steer away from anything that could resemble an auto-flowering trait or even what I call the stall in the F1 generation. To me, that speaks more to the auto parent in the cross. And if you're doing a true photo to auto and you're not looking for any of the unique, like weird shit that I'm looking for in the ABC, I'd venture to steer away from it. F2, F3 generation, if you're looking for that photo to auto trait, what you want to do in the F2 generation, you want to look for that stall. And what I mean by that is that plant will grow, mature, pre-flower, and then start to flower, and then stop. Basically, it gets to the point where I call optimum pollinate, to pollinate, the optimum point to pollinate. And then it needs 12-12 to continue its cycle.
I see.
That's what I typically look for in the F2 generation. Now, I'm letting out some dirty secrets here. And I mean, at the same time, I want to educate people properly. Like, that's what I look for.
I mean, like it just dawned on me, like all of these people on Facebook posting photos of these autoflowers that they say like go into flower or they don't. But even if they do, it's like they're in flower for like 10 weeks, dude. And they look like they're just beginning. It's like it's like, oh, that's what that is. Because I've always wondered, like, I don't know what the hell that is.
Right. And I mean, that's even happened to my cousin. Anthony has had, I can't remember what auto it was, but it just took forever. And I said, listen, man, I'm telling you that thing needs 12-12.
Mm-hmm.
And due to the fact that he was running other autos, it really wasn't an option, or he was going to impact the yield across the tent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was no justification in doing so. But that trait, and it sounds crazy, but that does exist.
So that could be an F2 that a breeder released, which probably maybe would have been a better idea if that breeder would have waited until F3.
Well, and you can even see it in the F3 too. You know what I mean? I mean, by F3, you're going to have a super high percentage of autos if you do a photo autocross. Okay? You're going to have a super high percentage of auto, but you're still going to have at least 25% that are going to do that or be potential full photo or, you know what I mean? Like there's still that mix that's going to be in there. So like F4 is technically ideal from a true photo autocross from my experience. There may be people out there that argue with me or see it differently, but like me personally, when I'm doing photo to auto, I'm not going to release anything to the public that's not past F4 or F5. But yeah, that does exist. Like, you've seen it, we've all seen it. And that back in the day, they used to call them semi-autos, which is a piss poor name for that to happen. All that is just an auto that it's a fast flowering photo, if you want my take on it. You know what I mean? Because as soon as you kick it over, it takes off. And when I was working the Forge, the one you're growing right now, to give you an example, the Durban Cross Ruderalis F2, the female I selected stalled. I was like, okay, you're almost there. And that's when I introduced a super dominant F5 autoflower that I knew, which was Anvil, which was super strong in the auto gene, was enough to knock it over the edge.
Gotcha.
And that's why those are freebies too. That's why I don't charge for those, because there's still some genetic variance going on in there. I dropped those freebies. They're up to F2 now. That's great, but I'm not going to they're not where I want them to be a releasable strain.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's still that potential. The F2s that are out there right now, probably not. I'd really be shocked to see an F2 of the Forge that was stuck in like a semi-auto stage. The F1s, the ones you're working with, there is that potential. I knew even when I released those, I wrote on the pack as the freebies, potential not to autoflower.
Oh, that's cool. As long as you're writing it on there, man. Shit, man, there ain't nothing wrong with that. And they're free. They're free.
Exactly. Transparent.
Plus they're free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's that aspect too. They're free.
Yeah, but that's cool that you let them know so that they can have I mean, like I didn't even know that until just now. So now I know to kind of keep a little bit of an eye out in the back of my head.
Right. Well, yeah, because
I got little eyes in the back of my head.
Right. And the ones I gave to you at the cup. You know what I mean? That was the first rendition of them.
Yeah,
that you got.
Like
and
over
they were
a year ago.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, dude. I keep cutting you off.
No, dude, you're fine. I cut you off too, so we're even now.
Yeah, hold on. Shut up. I want to say something. That was a good question, dude. I like that question. That was a good answer too, and it answered a totally off-topic like brain thing that I had going on. That was really cool.
Nice.
Local Delta 9. Sorry to leave you hanging right there, but that's all the time that we have for now. If you didn't hear your question addressed and answered, we will get to it in the next episode. Don't forget to follow the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're not already, follow Full Duplex as well. I will chat with you in the next episode, my friends. Enjoy your week, enjoy your devil's lettuce, and most importantly, enjoy yourself. See ya.
The deadly narcotic is thus quickly and easily prepared for its market. The sale of marijuana is even more difficult to detect and halt than the traffic in drugs such as opium, morphine, and heroin. The deadly narcotic